fun double podcast day. But
Love
yeah,
it.
welcome anyone watching live. If you're watching the replay, welcome also. Um, but yeah, I've got a returning guest. I should probably look up while we're doing that. Ooh boy, I am still searching for your podcast in my pocket. Um, Here we go. Let's see. Go to. I love on Spotify. You can search in a show.
Oh, that's
So I
nice.
just go to mine. You were on episode 148. So, okay. That was, oh, that wasn't that long ago. I mean, it was November of 2022 when it aired.
Okay,
So
yeah.
that is
That feels like a long time ago.
15 months ago. That's a
Yeah.
good amount. It was just, I don't know. I thought you were like early on. I don't know. It's just been a long 15 months apparently.
I guess so.
Um, but yeah. Well, yeah, everyone, y'all know the deal. Y'all can drop some comments in here as we're talking, and then I will bring them in the show. If you got some questions for us, I'm not just going to read your comments. But but yeah, Dave, welcome back to the podcast. I'm very excited to have you back. As I was just saying before we like officially started recording, looked up the last time you were on the show, which was episode. I looked it up and then I totally forgot.
148, you said.
You are correct. Yes, 148. Becoming a stronger entrepreneur by becoming a better version of yourself. Oh man, I need to go back and listen to that one again. Um, that one was that one was great. I loved that, and I love just hearing from you. I know, like in your Facebook group, um, you'll come on live every now and then and do little, not so quite so much like podcasts, but just kind of like talking
Yep.
and some coaching. And I just you always have great things to say. So I'm glad to have you back on the show. And now I'm going to let you say hi. I'm just rambling right
I appreciate it. Yeah, thanks for having me back. It's really exciting. This is the only time I've ever done the same podcast twice, so it's an
Nice.
experience for me too. But I
Sweet.
really enjoyed the time that we had last time. I've been enjoying the content you've been putting out. I finally like broke my intense personal dislike of Instagram and have been back on there. And then I saw you on there and I started looking at your stuff again. And yeah, we just reconnected. It was really great.
Nice. Do you mind me asking what your personal dislike of Instagram was, or possibly still is?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a personal dislike of social media as a whole. Not, I find it as a very effective tool for connection, for communication. I think the problem that I have with it is the gamification of it. Like,
Yeah.
I put out a reel and a TikTok and stuff the other day, talking about how I want creators to speak more, put themselves out there, show their faces out there. And immediately after, I got a DM from a friend who's into marketing and stuff like that. And she was laughing because she says, right after I saw your reel, I got this other reel for how you can use ChatGPT and Canva to create 100 faceless, like stock footage reels in 2 minutes. And I'm like, that's the thing that I hate about it. And especially Instagram over the last couple of years, it just feels like it's become a selling platform instead
Mm-hmm.
of like a creation platform. And so
Yeah.
that's the problem that I've had with it.
Yeah. Same here. I also don't like that. I like fell victim to it years ago of the like studying my insights and analytics and seeing, okay, what time of day on Wednesdays do like are my followers active in here, and what's the optimal time for me to post, and like what should I be talking about. And I was like, I really just want to use social media to be social and build
Mm.
connections, not so much the selling part. Like I'll share about what I sell. I'll share about that, but I'm not going to be like, hey, buy from me. Hey, this is this, and like all that. Like that's what my website is for them to go and check out that. Like I view social media more as like a connection, which I used it a ton back in the like Facebook heyday of
Hmm.
like 2008, 2009, whenever I was was I still in college in 2009? I think I graduated in 2009, but I was like away from all of my high school friends, and it was a good way for me to stay connected with them. And it was back in the days of like uploading an entire catalog of photos from a road trip, and just like terrible photos, but everyone would just like go through and like and comment on each one. And like there was that community to it that now Facebook has changed into a lot of selling.
Yeah.
And Instagram is kind of going that way too, which is pushing me more toward TikTok and
Same.
like Threads, where Threads doesn't seem as salesy as Instagram, but yeah, it's I'm with you there. It is that is the downfall of social media. Like we should use it to be more social and less as like I don't know, like a sales lot for all of our offers, and just trying to like you said, the gamification of it. It just takes a lot of the joy out of just getting on there and seeing what your friends are up to,
Yeah.
and looking through their stories and being like, oh, you went to that brunch place, cool, yeah, I've been there, that was amazing, did you try the chicken and waffles, you got to try the chicken and waffles. So yeah, no, I'm with you there.
Yeah, that's the piece
So
that I love is that just being able to see what my friends are up to. And now you have to fight through 19 sponsored posts and suggestions and everything else like that to get what you want.
hmm hmm so okay, there's something new that I'm doing on the podcast. I say that every time, but it's been like months now, so I think people are used to it. I have like a few questions that I like to ask before we get into like who is Dave Moss and like what do you do and where are you based. But I guess the new thing is that I've been asking listeners to provide some questions. So I have one from Ibrahim, and he asked, "Pineapple on pizza. What's your stance?"
Personally, I'm a no pineapple on pizza.
Okay.
I like pineapple on some other things, but I don't know. Any fruit sweet on pizza doesn't do well for me. Like there's a thing up here in Canada, an East Coast donair, and they do like a sweet garlic sauce, and they do donair pizzas now with that sweet garlic sauce. I just can't do it. Like I need my pizzas to be like savory and like full of vegetables and delicious things, and yeah.
I'm with you there. I like a good savory pizza, unless it's like a breakfast pizza or something, and usually that's like not even tomato sauce. It's like a whole different thing. Uh, but yeah, for me personally, also no for the no for the pepperoni. Absolutely not.
No,
All
and
of the
yes for the
pepperoni.
pepperoni.
Yes for the pepperoni. But yeah, I'm not a big fan of like hot fruit.
Yeah.
It's unless it's like in a pie or something. Although I was in Minnesota. I was gonna say a few years ago. It was like uh, 16 years ago, and and there was a place called, I think, King's Burger, and it was just like this little hole in the wall bar and grill type place, and they made really like out of the off the wall kind of burgers. So they had one that was like barbecue sauce with like a pineapple ring on it,
Yep.
and then a few other things. That was very good, and I have taken that back to Texas, and I will do that every now and then in the summer. Just like throw some pineapple on the grill. Um,
Yeah, we went to a
but
Brazilian steakhouse.
other than that,
Same thing. Like grilled pineapple, so good. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. There's something different. Maybe grilled pineapple on pizza. That might
Maybe.
change
Maybe the
things.
problem is just putting it in the oven. Maybe that's the issue.
It might be. Maybe. Okay. I'll try it. I'll give it a shot. Ibrahim, I will throw some grilled pineapple on a pizza sometime, and I'll tag you in it. But okay, well, sweet. Now that we know your pineapple stance, give us a little insight into who is Dave Moss. What do you do? Where you're based?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm based in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. So just north of Montana for those who don't know Canadian geography. Um, I've been
Most of us
here.
Americans, sadly.
I mean, everybody knows where like Toronto and Vancouver is and stuff like that. I am a 14-hour drive east of Vancouver and a 7-day drive west of Toronto. So I'm kind of in a place where most people don't know, but Banff, a lot of people know Banff. I live 45 minutes away from Banff. So that's my sort of claim to fame as far as location and why people come and visit my wife and I, and also ties a lot into my background, who I am, what I do. Been a wedding photographer for 15 years. We're down to about 5 to 10 weddings a year these days because we have a bunch of other stuff that is going on. We were going to fully retire. 2020 was going to be our last year, and then everything got weird. And then as we were shooting out those last couple of COVID weddings after taking such a long break, my wife, who was dealing with Lyme disease for a lot of years and we didn't know, just had chronic fatigue and other things. And so that was one of the reasons we were retiring, because it was going to take her 3 days to recover from every wedding. So we finally figured out what was going on there, got her all sorted out. And then we started shooting weddings again, just a little bit. And we both just fell back in love with it. So we're unretired now, but still just doing a couple for fun and to like keep our finger on the pulse of the industry and stuff. Because the other thing that I do is I coach creatives, mostly photographers, but I've got some fashion designers, graphic designers, other different types of people that I work with. I like creatives. We all think the same. And I've gone through the gamut of, for most of the last 7 years, it's been strictly business coaching. But over the last 2 years, it's really transformed more into mindset, growth, accountability. I kind of consider myself kind of like a creative CEO whisperer now more than anything else like that. I want to help people from that perspective.
Yeah, no, I love that title too. Needs to be on your business card. Do we still do business cards? Website. That's more valuable than a business card probably. But yeah, creative CEO whisperer. I love it. Because that, I don't know, that speaks more to more than just like coach.
Yeah.
Because there's also a ton of coaches out there.
So many. Yeah.
So many coaches, and some of them I'm like, do you actually coach, or do you just like come on here and be like, you should think this way?
Yeah, well, and I mean, like, just tying back into the Instagram conversation we had earlier, I find so many of the coaches are salespeople. They're not really they're creating ebooks or they're creating courses or guides or things like that, and they're just selling that. It's mostly passive. I do, my lion's share of work is one-on-one coaching. I have a weekly group coaching mastermind that I do with a group of professionals. Like, that's the stuff that I really love. I have pre-recorded content and I have all the rest of that, but like those offerings are very low cost. Like, I have a $27 a month membership that's mostly recorded. But the thing that I love about that is I still do 2 live calls a month with the group. And that's the thing that gets me going. So yeah, I would do it for free. Like, I tell my clients all the time, if I didn't have a mortgage to pay, like, I would still do this just because I love it so much.
That's great. That's how you know it's like a calling. It's what you're meant to do, what you actually love doing, instead of like, I also coach creatives and photographers, and there was one that I was talking to recently, and she was like, I started photographing weddings because there's like good money in it, but I don't really like it too much. And he's like, you may not want to do that long term. Like,
Yeah.
it might be good to like get some money legs underneath you to be able to like figure out what it is that you actually do enjoy doing. But yeah, the I would do this for free because I just love it. That's how you know it's true. So yeah, that's awesome. Okay, quick little tangent, as we do here. Actually, they're not normally quick. But how did you get into coaching and like mindset kind of stuff from wedding photography?
Yeah. So photographing weddings, this was 2017. My wife and I started thinking about exit plans because her health was getting worse and worse. And we knew that we couldn't continue doing, 25 to 40 weddings plus 30 portrait sessions, sunrise in the mountains. Like, there's a lot of like 1 a.m. wake ups to drive out to the mountains for sunrise and stuff like that. it just was becoming less and less feasible. So we started looking for other things that we could do. She had already been training for years. My wife, her other business is she does trauma healing. So she's trained with neurolinguistic programming. She did a 7-year Chinese shamanic medicine and qigong training. She has she just collects knowledge, and she wants to help people get over their traumas.
Yeah.
But I didn't have a thing, and I didn't know what it was going to be. We went out to British Columbia, the province next to us, to photograph a couple who, it was like a kind of an engagement session, but also just they were moving to Italy to get married, and then they were going to live there for 2 years. And so it was kind of also a goodbye to their area of the world. And we just got to talking with them, and they were both coaches. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Now they were relationship coaches, but I didn't really know at that time, like coaching was still pretty new to me. And so I went home and I looked into some stuff, and it didn't really click, and I got distracted. And then we went for dinner with 2 other friends, and it was this lovely couple. One was a photographer, the other one was a coach, but I didn't know. It was our first time meeting her, and she talked about the program that she went through. And I'm like, that sounds like what I want to do, because she was doing life coaching. And so I went and looked into the program, and the next run of it started in 2 weeks. And it was a fairly high ticket price to get into this program. It was run by a woman named Martha Beck, who she's a multi-published author. She, has her own podcast, which is also wild. She was Oprah's life coach. So she had some chops. She had some credentials behind her. She's a PhD sociologist, taught in business school. And so I'm like, okay, this feels right, because it's rooted in a lot of scientific principles, but it is also very emotional and very just sort of like feel your way through it. And I felt like at that time that was something that I was missing. I was that logical person who would research everything and very like no spirituality, no nothing. And so I'm like, that's going to fill a gap. And so let's take the program. It's a 9-month program. We'll just see what happens, and we'll go through it. And I was hooked from day one.
Nice.
So I did that. We had to get so many practicum hours in order to get like our certifications and stuff. So I did. I got 50 free coaching clients that I did like multiple coaching sessions a day over the course of months. And I'm like, this is it. This is what I'm meant to be doing. And I think that's why I'm leaning back into more of the life coaching stuff now, away from the business coaching stuff, because that's the reason why I got into it. And it's the stuff that I really love to unpack. The business stuff is great. I know how to run a successful business, and I can help people with it. But the thing that I've realized over the last 7 years is the thing for most creatives that stops them from running a good business is them. It's not usually their talent. It's not usually their output. It's not usually how they run their business. It's usually the ways they are sabotaging themselves.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. And I was gonna say, kind of tying back to the last time you were on the show, where we talked about becoming a better business owner by becoming a better person yourself.
Yeah.
It's like so much of your business's success is tied to you
Yeah.
and how healthy you are mentally, physically, all of that. And actually like working on your mindset and working with a life coach, working with a CEO whisperer, will will help you like get into the place that you need to be, so that you are sturdy, and that like, because you are a lot of the listeners, so myself included, like we are solopreneurs. We are the one, we're the CEO, we're the whole board,
Mm-hmm.
making decisions for things. And if you are not healthy, if you don't have sturdy legs to push through and push your business forward, it's your business isn't going to be as successful as it could be. Uh, so I love that. I love that you're like leaning into that, and teaching and coaching there.
Yeah, I mean that's a new shift for me. Like I've been like, it's just kind of in the last 3 or 4 months that I've been shifting brand, starting to think about what I want to do more. And like you said, like for solo entrepreneurs, we are the CEO, but we're also the board. What I find with most solo entrepreneurs is they're very rarely the CEO. They're more often than not the like grunt worker, and they don't allow themselves to step into that like I'm a business owner position and make smart decisions on behalf of their company and themselves. And so that's something that I'm trying to figure out how I turn that that into a
Yeah.
platform.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Because a lot of us, like, we start off just kind of being scrappy and
Yeah.
just we're the grunt worker. We're doing whatever we can to grow the business to where we can get more people in to pay us to do what we're doing, and not so much the CEO kind of, or what is that saying? The like you need to spend time working in your
In your
business,
business,
not
not just on
on
your
your
business. Oh, my
business.
light just
Yeah.
turned off. There we go. Sorry about that.
Some mood lighting. It's good.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think that's really important, and kind of ties in with the topic today of like hustle culture and how that has run rampant through the entrepreneurial world for, I don't know, I feel like it was kind of getting started when I hit the scene, like, 12 years ago or so,
Yeah. It's like
where
the 2010s was really
yeah.
when it hit.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. Like 2015, 2016, I remember it being just like everything was hustle.
Yeah.
Everything was, you know, get out there, keep working. The saying kept being passed around, and I still see it every now and then in like Facebook groups of, I left my 9 to 5 to work 24/7,
Yeah.
and what, I don't know, just like what is, for maybe a few people who just are like, I don't really know what hustle culture is. I haven't seen that. Um, what is hustle culture?
Yeah. So I think hustle culture was born of two places. I think it was born from a one place where people just had these things that they were passionate about, and they really wanted to do them, and they really wanted to work on them, and they got so lit up by it that they would work 24/7. Like when I quit my day job, I was already working a million hours because I had a full-time engineering position that I used to be in, and then I would come home on the evenings and weekends and run a photo business with my wife. So when I quit my job, I just kept those hours because that's just what I knew. I didn't know at the time that that was hustle culture, but it was. But hustle culture is prioritizing productivity and prioritizing output and prioritizing revenue over all else. It's the concept that, like, by pushing yourself to be the most productive, you will be the most valuable member of society. Is the way I look at it. Now, I'm sure there's lots of different people who look at it different ways, but it is that productivity trap. I watched myself, my wife, my friends, lots of different people fall into that trap of feeling like they were worthless if they weren't being productive. Rest was lazy. Taking care of yourself, that in a way that wasn't like hitting the gym at 5 a.m. was lazy,
Right.
like that sort of thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah. For years, anytime that I would take rest and just like, have a day off, just taking off a Tuesday or something, just or even just like sitting around, like if I wanted to watch a show, if I wanted to play some video games, it was like that guilt of, but I could be doing this. I could be doing something else to be productive and move forward. And I know I took a lot of that kind of hustle culture mentality from my 9 to 5 that I had before this.
Hmm.
Because I worked, let's see, I started the business 2013. So I did like a little bit over 2 years of both 9 to 5 plus photography. And same as you. Once I left that job, I was just like, well, I need to fill all of these hours that I was working, and I'll work on this and grow it faster. And and yeah, it was something that like really quickly led to burnout, to where I was not excited to go photograph weddings anymore. And I would just be like, well, I don't know. I was just at this venue like last week or 2 weeks ago, and I'm not feeling it. And was definitely giving my clients subpar what they paid for, because
Hmm.
I was burnt out, because I was hustling all the time.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's a hard place, because it's also like very celebrated uh, by others, of just like, looking back, it's almost like a celebration of what you went through. It's like, oh well, I went through all of these years of just hustling and, sleeping 3 hours a night so that I could do all of this work and then grow to a 7-figure business. And now I can relax. And it's it's hard to get out of that hustle mentality when it is still celebrated by a lot of people.
Yeah, it's really hard, and it's infiltrated so many different places. Like I think it's such a huge part
Mm,
of corporate culture now. Like the number of times I've consulted for a different number of different startups and tech companies and things like that, and like I'll talk to their CEOs, and they're saying, why don't my employees work as hard as me? Like I'm putting everything I have into this, and I said, well, what's their compensation if they work as hard as you? And they're like, well, they should just want to do it because it's meant to be. I'm like, this is your dream. For them, this is a means to, keeping food on their table, doing everything else like that. If you want it to be their dream too, you have to get them as excited as you are and then also put them on the same compensation path that you are. And it's really hard for them to understand that because CEOs are infiltrated with hustle culture, which then puts it into their companies. I had a friend who was obsessed with the concept of FIRE, financial independence, retire early, which was
oh
this
yeah.
movement, especially on Reddit, of like young people retiring at 40. So just like grinding your 20s and your 30s out, living in like a 1-bedroom apartment, eating nothing, working, side hustles, everything else like that, so that you can retire when you're 40. And about 2 or 3 years ago, I started seeing the posts of people who had done that and were now a couple of years into their fire journey and talking about how they have no friends, they don't know how to build relationships, like all of the pillars of what make a good life are gone because you've just put everything into the grind, into work and into finances. And I get it. Finances are super, super important now more than ever. Job market sucks. Everything costs more than it ever did before. We still need to earn income. Like my anti-hustle culture stuff is not about not making a living for your family. Like I have 3 businesses. Like I hustle, but I balance it with other things, and that balance came for a very strong reason. Right around this time last year, in March of last year, I fell into a deep depression from overwork and from burnout and from stress and not feeling like I was good enough and not hitting the numbers that I had wanted to set for myself and all the rest of this. And I actually attempted suicide. Thankfully, didn't work. Um,
Uh,
got help, went to therapy, all the rest of that. But like my burnout really burned out. And so I know what that feels like. And I know what that desperation for, more income or a better life or not feeling productive and all the rest of that is. And I also know what the other side of that, like for most of last year, I was unable to work. Like I was just in recovery, trying to put the pieces of my life back together and my marriage back together and all the rest of that. And so I know what the cost is or what cost can be if you just continue to hustle forever. So that's why I understand why it's lauded. I understand why people look at the people who hustle and are like, "Oh man, I just want to be them." But I want to start peeling the curtain back a little bit on some of that. And yes, there are stories of people who have gone from living an impoverished life to being millionaires because they worked really hard, and I laud that. But there are a lot more people who didn't make it, who it's that survivorship bias, and again, that's just something that I struggle with on social media. Is we talk about the winners, but very few people talk about the losers.
yeah, yeah, and thanks for sharing that about like your journey and everything with last year. Um, I think that's really important for people to hear. I think like you were saying with that on social media, where we see the highlight of everything,
Hmm.
and we do like glorify those people who started with nothing, pulled themselves up by their bootstraps, they hustle, 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 and now they're multimillionaires and they're teaching other people how to hustle and do all that. Um, and and we see them, but a lot of times we don't see the person next door to us who has been hustling and just the gears are not matching, and it's just like they're just slipping and falling over and over again as they're hustling and burning out and just like falling into depression. Last year also very difficult for me. We transitioned from my wife being stay-at-home primary parent to me being stay-at-home primary parent in the same time that a couple of my associates who were working with me were not holding up their side of the contracts and all of that, which I was like putting out fires all over the place, which was very exhausting. And me being a recovering perfectionist was just like dagger after dagger into my heart of people just being like, we are not satisfied with what we got with all our photography. I'm like, no, like all I want is, this is those weddings. I want this to be amazing, an amazing experience for them to look back on. And there were a good bit of people from 22 and 23 that were not, and that really did some emotional damage for me. And uh, and yeah, like the whole um, taking time, like you were saying, like making space to care for yourself. Um, I was not doing that. I was trying to hustle and put out these fires. I was also trying to hustle and like bring in more revenue because we were also losing tens of thousands of dollars. And and then at the same time, parent three kids, two of which were not in school yet. And I was just like, it was a lot. And I know that there's a lot of listeners out there that are probably in similar boats, identifying with both of our stories, and just feeling that kind of, well, if I don't hustle, how am I going to like be productive enough to get out of this rut? Do you have any suggestions or anything for them to like kind of be more productive without like working 24/7?
Yeah, I think you have to ask yourself two questions. One, what does productive mean? Because most of us don't actually have an answer to that. When I asked myself that question and I realized that rest is productive, that was like a that concept, and how I sell it to my clients now, because usually I'll say, rest is productive, and they go, sure, Dave,
Oh
yeah.
yeah, okay.
Yeah. But how I sell it to them is like, okay, think about high performance athletes, right? Which I am definitely not one of. But think about high performance
Think of
athletes.
Dave Moss, high
Yeah.
performance athlete.
Yeah. But like the 20 years ago, a lot of the thinking around high performance athletes was train every single day, right? Like train the muscle, switch muscle groups, do things like that, but train every single
Mhm.
day. Now they're actually talking about how rest days, your muscles actually have a better chance of growing and healing properly and getting stronger, and the tendons knitting to the bone tighter and everything else like that if you stop. Like if you actually give it time to rest and replenish and everything else like that. So if you can think of your rest as a way to then perform better, it can actually be huge. And so like for me, I block out the days of my week to do specific tasks. So Mondays is always business development. Tuesdays is always catch up, like catching up on emails, making sure my clients are all happy.
Mhm.
Thursdays are working on one of my other businesses. Business is an adventure. Friday is marketing day. Wednesday is life stuff day. So I literally like I'll vacuum our whole house. I'll clean. I'll do things. I'll go to Costco. I'll do all the rest. That is productive. But for me, the whole time, I often listen to, I'm an audiobook addict. On Wednesdays, I don't listen to nonfiction stuff. I'll listen to a sci-fi book or a fantasy book or, whatever, something else like that. Like everything I do on Wednesdays is just
Mhm.
about stepping away from work. I have a weekly Dungeons and Dragons game that I play with my friends. They come over every Wednesday
Nice.
night and we do that. Like Wednesday is a break in the middle of the week that makes Monday and Tuesday better, but it also makes Thursday and Friday better. I'm not burnt out at the end of every week because I've been sprinting for 4 or 5 days every single
Mhm.
time. And then I have a floater day that I just call learn, because we all have days where you just can't be productive. And if you try to push it, it's never going to work. That's the grind, that's the hustle and grind. Grind is not good. Grind wears you down. We don't want to grind.
Yeah, if you think of gears and like how machines work, grinding is not a good thing. That
Yeah.
is when you're like, oh, hit the emergency stop button. We need to figure out what's going on, what's grinding in there. This is
Yeah.
not helpful.
Yeah, so now I swap a learn day in once, like if I have a day that I can't focus, I'll just swap it out for learn day and I'll go and watch a course that I bought that I never got around to watching, or
As we
read a
all
book or
have.
whatever. Yeah, everybody has them.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing to figure out, is what is productive to you. The second thing that I think you have to ask for is, what's the cost? Because everything has a cost. Me putting the cost of wanting to have multiple six figures or seven figure businesses had a cost that ended up being me almost losing my life. Me wanting to hustle and be known for everything and have, podcasts and speak on stages and do all the rest of that had the cost of, I was spending less and less and less time with my wife. I don't even have kids. Like, I was just spending less time with my wife, let alone the rest of my family. And so we had to repair all of that. Like, ask yourself what the cost of what you are doing is. And then on the inverse of that, what do you get out of it? Like, what are you working so hard for? Do you want to have financial security for your family? Great. What does that actually look like? Do you just want to have all of your bills paid and have enough left over so you can go on a couple of vacations a year? Do you want to have multiple properties? What's the purpose of having those multiple? Like, you got to figure it out. Don't just be chasing a dream. Actually know what you're going after. Otherwise, you're just running through the forest with a blindfold on, and eventually you're going to hit a tree.
Yeah. Yeah. Statistically, probably sooner rather than
Probably
later.
sooner rather than
Uh,
later. Yeah.
I mean, I will watch you run through a forest with a blindfold on, but I
I'll,
don't want to
I'll
be
do
that
I'll do
person.
it for a TikTok sometime.
Yes. Yes. And then you'll go viral for that, and everyone's like, "All right, Dave, when are you gonna run blindfolded somewhere else?"
Yeah.
Um, but no, I think that's. I mean, having that, um, like naming something, like you said, like having those goals instead of just I want financial insecurity. I want financial security. Um, that like these are buzzwords that we hear, and that a lot of kind of the TikTok coaches and the people that are just like, here, go get this, PDF of these 5 things to get closer to uh, financial security. It's like, but what does that look like for you? Because
Yeah.
financial security for you, Dave, looks different than it does for me, John,
Yep.
because we have different lives. We live in different places. We, have different families. Like we're renting here. We're not set on like living in this town. We may move. We don't know, and like we have. It's something that my wife and I have been trying to do over this last year, is really put numbers down to what is like financial freedom look like, and what are the steps that we can take, like baby steps or leaps or whatever we have capacity of doing right now to get there.
Yeah.
And I think that being able to just sit down, even for just like 15 minutes one day, and just say, like, for my business, what am I reaching for? What am I going toward? Do I am I just photographing weddings, and I am wanting to get to a certain level to where people are paying me 15-20K per wedding? It's like, okay, if that's what you're wanting, what steps do you need to take to get there? And then also tying in the rest that you were talking about earlier, is that has been a huge hurdle for me personally, is like actually taking rest. And like we this past weekend, as we are recording this, my wife and I went to Seattle. It was our anniversary weekend, and that was where we wanted to go for our honeymoon, but it's January, so we were we were like, we'll go to Cancun instead. um, Also, my parents were like, if you go to Cancun, we'll pay. And we were like, that
Deal.
free beach sounds better than, gloomy Seattle that we have to pay for. But this was kind of fun because we got to go kind of experience Seattle in January, what we would have had 11 years ago had we had done
Hmm.
that. And yeah, it was definitely not as warm as a beach in Mexico, but that rest, like I was very intentional about, I'm bringing my laptop because I know that I have like a couple things that I'll probably have to do on Monday. But other than that, I'm not going to be posting on social media. I'm not going to be, you know, in their like actively marketing in different ways, or going through my long to-do list of stuff that I need to do for the business. And those few days of rest were great, and I feel so much more um, energized and invigorated to go like do the things that I probably would have done had I not set those boundaries of rest over the weekend.
Yeah. Yeah, it's wild how we all just get caught up so much in what we're doing that we don't think to stop, or we don't can't find the ability to stop. Like I had these this amazing couple who came to me a couple of years ago for coaching. They had, for all intents and purposes, a fairly successful wedding photography business. They were over that six-figure mark. They were getting the clients that they wanted to get, but they just felt like they needed more because that's what they kept hearing. Like every listicle, every Instagram post, everything in the wedding industry was, more, more, more. And so they're like, okay, let's get a coach. We worked on their wedding business for maybe about 3 months, and I started to notice that their hearts weren't in it. I started to notice that this isn't what they wanted to do. And so I started asking those questions. I was like, is this actually what you want to do? Like, the husband kept talking about like commercial stuff and sports and event photography that wasn't weddings, and the wife was so focused on like, I just love the systems and spreadsheets and CRMs and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
Neither of them loved doing wedding photography. Jump cut 2 years later, the wife is now running a business that helps set up automations and systems for photographers. The husband's going to photograph the Super Bowl. He now is a photographer for the Kansas City Chiefs. He was in Baltimore last week for that game. He gets to go to the Super Bowl next week. He's a photographer for the WPGA Tour. He's a photographer for Ironman. Like, he gets flown all around the world to shoot these events in a documentary fashion, in the way that he loves to work. But like, he never would have got that if he never had the time to sit back and answer those questions of like, what's the cost? What am I doing this for? And like, is this actually a healthy decision that I'm making, or am I just running so I can run?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Running so you can run. I think that is, I mean, for listeners, like that is, take that from this conversation. If you don't take anything else, like figure out what it is that you're doing. Like, are you just running to run, or you know, uh, having I think that's so important. Just like you were able to give them that time of like rest and reflection of, is this what you actually want to do? When, if you're just hustling through and you're like, well, we are wedding photographers, this is what we do, and this is what we've been doing. Like, I've been photographing weddings for going on 12 years now, and it's something that I'm probably going to pivot out of in the next couple of years. And I'm already setting things up to allow me to do that, because I do still have a heart for it, but for my lifestyle, with like my oldest is 9 and he's playing baseball this spring and played last spring. And thankfully, I was able to make all the games, but like a lot of the practices Saturday mornings, I'm like, can't do Saturday morning. I have a wedding. And like needing to, or wanting to like pivot my business to fit the lifestyle that I'm wanting. And that wouldn't have been able I wouldn't have been able to figure out that without slow times to rest, specific times to like assess what I'm doing, and is this what I want to be doing, or am I just running to run? So I think that is super helpful. Do you have any last words for the listeners, or anything else you want to kind of touch on this hustle culture, rest, and all of that?
It's one of those things. It's like, it's really hard to tie up something so complex, because I've really realized that everybody's journey is so completely unique in what they're doing. But like, just talk to people about it. Like, talk to your peers, talk to your colleagues, talk to your therapist, talk to a coach, talk to your priest. Like, I don't care. But like, if you are feeling like you are just running to run, like you don't know what your direction is and you don't know what to do, don't bottle it. It's not going to get better. Don't go and read a million books on grit and drive and hustle and everything else like that. It's not going to get any better. Just talk it out and really be vulnerable and open and get it off your chest and be prepared to listen to what people have to say. A lot of the time, I'm using a lot of forest analogies, but a lot of the times we can't see the forest for the trees when we're in it, right? Like we
Especially if
can't,
we're blindfolded.
especially if we're blindfolded. Yeah. But like we can't see the things that our friends, our family, professionals, everything else like that can see. So if you are feeling like you are struggling, I mean, for God, just DM me on Instagram. I'll have a conversation with you about it if you don't know who you can talk to. But if you're feeling like a struggle, don't
Mhm.
keep struggling, because eventually you won't have the energy to keep struggling. And then what?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, I mean, I'm a huge advocate for community, and I talk about that almost every episode. People are probably sick of hearing it by now, but
But it's so
it is
important.
so important.
Yeah.
And yeah, like having community, even if it's just one or two other people. Like I host a local photographer get together once a month. We just go grab a drink and hang out, and we just talk. And sometimes we talk business, sometimes we don't. A lot of times we don't. And it's just like we are we're working by ourselves mostly. So we don't have like coworkers that we can like chat to, and like, how was your weekend and all of that kind of stuff. So like having that community with other people who are also kind of going through a lot of the same stuff most likely is super helpful. So if you don't have a community near you, start one. There was not one here.
Mm-hmm.
I moved here and I was like, oh, there's no like Rising Tide Society, there's no get-togethers, there's nothing here. um, I was like, okay, I can I can host something where we're not like, I'm not teaching anything. We're just getting together and having a drink.
Yeah.
And it's been 8 years of that now. And some of my closest friends are part of that group. Uh, so yeah, I think that was a great, yeah, like you said, kind of hard to like wrap up this whole conversation, but that's a great way to do it. I think that's super, super important. But yeah, man, Dave, this was so good. Before we kind of wrap up, let people know where you are and how they can get a hold of you. There's something that I like to do where we talk about what we're loving this week. And I think we did this, I think I've been doing this for a while. So I think when you were on last time, we talked about this.
Yeah.
But yeah, what are you loving last, or what are you loving this week?
Uh, s- so this week it's kind of ties into what we've just been talking about. I've been thinking a lot about the concept of third places.
Mm,
So third places, for those of you who don't know, it's not home and it's not work. It's somewhere else you can go and you have a community and you can create connection. The traditional definition of third place is a place where there's no work being done and traditionally no alcohol. But if you want to go have a beer, go have a beer. Um, because it's something that a lot of people don't have anymore, especially
mm,
as like more and more people are leaving churches and different things like that. Third places are hard. Starbucks originally built their whole business model on being a third place, which is really interesting.
that's cool.
Um, but yeah, that's something that I've been interested in and thinking about. Like, is there a way that I could create a third place in my life that also fosters like more growth in the people that I care about and growing in that way? So still very early phases on into something like that. But yeah, that's what I'm
Nice.
interested in.
Have you like set a location and stuff like that, or still in the early phases of?
Still super in the early phases. It's funny because my first instinct is to make our house the third place for other people, because we don't have kids, because we have like we bought a big house because we like to fill it with people. We like to have people come and stay with us, that sort of
Mhm.
thing. And so I saw a TikTok recently from this guy who every Sunday morning turns his house into a coffee shop for all of his friends, because he loves being like a little at-home barista. He's got two espresso makers, things like that. So he just
Nice.
sets it up. He puts a menu board up of, here are the coffee drinks I'm making today. People bring, croissants and cookies and things, and then they all just come out and hang out like it's a coffee shop. So I pitched that idea to
That's
my
cool.
wife and she's into it. So we might turn our house
Nice.
into a coffee shop this weekend. We'll see.
That would be cool. Yeah, I like that idea. I like, y'all seem like y'all are very like good hosts also, that you enjoy, inviting
Yeah.
people in. My wife and I are the same, where we love, that's why we chose this house over some others, because this has like a nice little backyard and patio. It's got a big living area that's kind of open space or open concept, that we're like, we feel like we can fit more people in here and we can comfortably invite people over. And we've been able to do that since we've been here the last 6 months. But yeah, no, that'll be fun.
Yeah.
That'll be cool. I love a good third place, and meeting up somewhere. That was something, that concept I had not heard of until we were in our old church in Austin, Texas, where we led a small group, which we would invite people to our place for like Bible study and like get together. But then we had a third place where we could invite other people who weren't part of our group to just
Mm.
like meet up and be friends, and like that third kind of middle ground. It's a neutral zone for everyone to go. So I love that. And yeah, that's exciting. And I love the idea of like turning your house into a coffee shop. It's fun. Um, for me, I am loving. I've been watching a lot of shows over this kind of like slow wedding season, as I'm editing or as I'm just kind of, you know, we've had sick kids for like a month now. We had
Oh,
to reschedule this podcast because my youngest was sick, and now she's back in school. But now my middle is sick out there, and she's been great. She's gone through 2 podcasts today, so she's doing amazing. Plus, my wife is working from home today, so she's been checking in on her. But yeah, because that there have been a lot of couch snuggles while they're watching like Gabby's Dollhouse and stuff, and I'll just like hold up my phone and watch whatever I want to. And one of the things that I watched was on Prime Video called "Promising Young Woman," and really interesting concept of this lady who uh, would go to bars and just kind of like act really tipsy, and then the nice guy would come over and offer to like take her back to her place or go get her a cab, or like, oh no, I'll just drive you or whatever. And then a lot of times they would not be so nice, and then she would just like snap out of the fake drunk and just be like, what are you doing right now? And they freak out. Um, but is really interesting movie. Carrie Mulligan
mm.
was great, and Bo Burnham, the comedian, which probably most people know for his 2020 Inside, where he filmed everything inside his little studio apartment. Uh, he's one of the main characters or supporting characters. But yeah, it was really good. It was an interesting show, and I liked it. And the ending was not what I was expecting. So I always like those movies where I'm like, didn't see that. That's cool.
Awesome. I put it on my list. I keep a notes
Okay,
of all the
sweet.
things that people recommend for me to watch because we always like we'll
Same.
we'll go down for cuddle time and we're like, what do you want to watch? I don't know. So now
Mm.
I have a list on my phone of like movies, TV, documentaries, like everything. It's like pick a genre and I have something.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I have started doing that in my notes app. I just have it's like recommendations, and then I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, and then I'll just like once I watch it and I like it, I'm like copy that over to my notes app for what I'm loving this week.
Yeah.
Uh, but well, sweet. Well, Dave, thanks again for being on the show. Where can people find you? Where can they follow along and check out all the stuff that you're doing?
Yeah, I'm Dave Moss Coach everywhere. So at Dave Moss Coach on TikTok, at Dave Moss Coach on Instagram, DaveMossCoach.com. I try to keep it really simple so that I'm easy to find.
That is helpful.
Yeah.
That's good. It's always like that wasn't something that I thought of early on with like all these places need to be cohesive. So like my Facebook was something else, and like Twitter was a whole different thing, and then I stopped doing that. But yeah, cool. Dave Moss Coach. I will have all of those linked in the show notes for everyone, so they can go say hey
Amazing.
and shoot you a DM if they want to.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Thank
well,
you for so
thanks
much for having
for
me, man. This was awesome.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for coming back for a second time.
Yeah.
This is fun. You're gonna be, You got one show in the 100s. This is going to be somewhere in the 200s episodes. So that's fun. We'll have you back maybe before 300s. That
Yeah,
seems like
let's
a long time from now.
let's see how it
But
goes.
oh, also, because this is going to go live in a few weeks. Plug your podcast. Tell us about your podcast just a little bit.
Oh
I'll
yeah,
go listen.
so the first episode comes out tomorrow. It went through a few iterations in my brain. I originally started recording it last year. I recorded 10 episodes. Kind of knew before I knew what it was going to be about. All I had was the name of it, and then I wanted to talk to people. But something that I have always been is curious. I have a million ideas. I jump through a million hobbies. I've had a million jobs. I'm curious about a lot of things. And I know that other people are too. So the premise of the podcast is I'm talking to a wide range of people about things that they are good at that have allowed them to inject, their businesses are different. So I talked to a photographer who went to school for philosophy and rhetoric and is just probably one of the most amazing conversationalists I've ever met, and he uses that with his clients. I talked to another woman who was/is a photographer, but is also now an author and a body positivity rights activist, and how that like tied into her boudoir work and other things. And so it's me being curious about people and then what they're curious about and having those conversations and about how like we are the sum of all of our parts. It's like I think we often try to hide ourselves, and I have to be professional, or I have to be a wedding photographer, or I have to be this. And life is way more interesting when you let all of that go. Like when I started talking about my depression or Dungeons and Dragons or like all sorts of other weird things, it's amazing the connection that created. So that's, yeah.
Oh yeah. The amount of people that whenever I mention something about like watching a horror movie, or that I love like that horror genre and Halloween and all that, the amount of people that just like came out of the woodworks of just like, yes, me too. I also love this. Have you seen this movie? I was like, I had no idea I needed to talk about this, but this is amazing. Well, that's cool. I'm very excited, and it's called So Damn Curious, correct?
Yes. So I didn't say
Okay.
the name. Yes. So damn curious. Again. So I'm going to link to it from my Dave Moss Coach profiles, but I have also made a So Damn Curious on TikTok and Instagram, where clips will be going up because I need to have more places that I'm spending time online.
Exactly.
But yeah, it's So Damn Curious. I'd love to have you there on some time. And like the thing that I love about it is anybody can be on it, because like I would love to talk to somebody who's like an accountant where somehow their kite surfing hobby has like influenced their life or whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to follow my own curiosity and then have conversations with people they're curious about.
That is amazing. I am very excited to listen. I mean, just the few that you've already talked about, I'm excited about those, and just like the possibilities
Yeah.
is so great. And I would love to be on your show.
Yeah. We'll make
I
it
am
happen.
very curious about many things, so it'll be fun.
Awesome.
But yeah, well, thanks for coming back on again, and I really enjoyed this conversation. Yeah, thank you to everyone watching live, and thanks for joining us for another episode. All right, bye, y'all.